Have you ever imagined being in a supermarket place where everyone is just going about their day, buying food, planning dinners, and being treated like a criminal? Not for stealing, not for making threats, but for the crime of not having enough money to pay for the food your children need to eat. It's Thanksgiving Eve. Riverside Market is packed in a way only a major holiday can. Carts overflowing with 20-pound turkeys, frozen pumpkin pies, ingredients for homemade stuffing, canned cranberries, sweet potato, marshmallows, adult wine, special children's juice, families shopping for elaborate feasts. A performative abundance that defines an American holiday about gratitude. And at checkout counter number 3, Rachel Morgan is with 2 young children, Ethan, 8, and Lily, 5, trying to pay for $14.32 worth of food with a handful of coins she counted 3 times before getting in line. The cashier is young, 19 years old, first job, and she counts the coins. Rachel deposits on the counter quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, a small but heavy pile of metal that Rachel carried in a torn pocket. $12.07. Silence. Rachel looks at the bag being packed. White bread, generic brand, peanut butter, large, because it makes more meals. Milk, not organic, just the cheapest. And for apples, small, but fruit that Lily loves. Can I leave the apples? Cashier removes apples, reverse scan, $11.89. Not enough yet. $2.43 away. It may not seem like much. For most people in line behind Rachel, $2 is Starbucks coffee. It's a casual tip. It's change left in the car's console. But for Rachel, it makes a difference whether children eat or not. She searches her pocket again. Desperate fingers searching for a miracle she knows doesn't exist. Nothing. She checks her purse. A torn bottom where coins are escaping. And she finds 15 cents, 3 nickels stuck to a scrap of fabric. Put it on the counter. Does this help? Cashier's account, $12.22. We're still $2.10 short. And behind Rachel, the line grew. 6 people, all sighing with that impatient sigh of those who have places to be, parties to prepare, lives to live. No compassion, just irritation at being late. A man in a suit 40-something, a BMW, probably in the parking lot, speaks loudly enough for everyone to hear. Come on, lady. Some of us have places to be. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt the weight of public judgment when all you want is to survive another day? Have you ever had to choose between dignity and necessity? Stay with me until the end, because what happens when the entire system decides that your poverty is inconvenient will reveal something brutal about how we treat hunger as a moral crime instead of a systemic failure. Rachel feels tears welling up. Not here, not in front of her children, not in front of strangers who already judge her. Sorry, I just need to find out. But there's nothing to discover. Pockets are empty. Bank accounts are empty. And options non-existent. The manager appears. Mr. Patterson, 50 years old, 25 years managing the same supermarket, a tired expression, like a man who has seen 1,000 versions of this scene and is exhausted by them all. Miss, if you can't pay, I need to ask you to leave. You're holding up the line, please. Rachel's voice breaks. It's only a few cents. I have children. They need to eat. And I have a store to manage. I can't make exceptions. Security. A word that transforms an embarrassing moment into public humiliation. Security guard. A young man in his 20s. His uniform seemingly too large approaches. Not threatening. But his presence transforms Rachel from a customer into a problem. Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Please. It's Thanksgiving Eve. My children, the manager asked. You need to leave. And it happens. In front of a crowded market. In front of dozens of people buying extravagant party supplies. On the eve of a holiday that supposedly celebrates gratitude and community, Rachel Morgan is escorted out as if she were a dangerous criminal. Ethan, 8 years old, Too old for his age holds his mother's hand so tightly it hurts, trying to hold on, trying to protect her even without knowing how. His face is red with a shame a child shouldn't know. Lily, 5 years old, confused, cries. She doesn't understand why mommy is being treated badly. She doesn't understand why the man is making mommy go out. She only knows that something is wrong. Very wrong. Mom, did we do something bad? An innocent question that cuts like a knife. No, dear. Mom just didn't have enough money. And they leave. Through automatic doors, to a cold November parking lot. Without food. Without dignity. Without hope. For the crime of not having $2.25. Because in a society that punishes poverty instead of helping, hunger is treated as a moral failing, and desperate mothers trying to feed their children. They are inconveniences to be removed, not people to be helped. But what Rachel doesn't know, what nobody in that market knows, is that sheriff was in the adjacent line. He saw everything. And unlike all the others who sighed impatiently or judged silently, he will do something that will change everything. Because sometimes, the only difference between despair and hope is a person who chooses to see humanity instead of inconvenience. But before we get there, before we understand who will intervene and why, you need to understand who Rachel Morgan really is. Because she wasn't always a woman counting coins at a supermarket checkout. She wasn't always a mother being escorted out like a criminal. She wasn't always the person the whole town looks at with a mixture of pity and judgment. 14 months ago, Rachel had a different life. Not perfect, not rich, but stable, normal. The kind of life most people take for granted until it falls apart. Rachel Morgan, 31 years old, widow. A word that carries a weight no one understands until they use it. Mother of Ethan, 8 years old, and Lily, 5 years old. And a woman who discovered in the most brutal way possible that until death do us part doesn't include bills that keep piling up, debts that don't disappear, or a system that punishes. Widowhood as if it were a choice. Michael Morgan died 14 months ago. Car accident. Truck ran a red light. Michael was coming home from work. A normal Wednesday, 6:15 in the afternoon. The impact was instantaneous. He was 33 years old, and Rachel was at home preparing dinner, waiting for her husband to arrive. Children doing their homework at the kitchen table. An absolutely ordinary life until the phone rang and a police officer on the other end said words that shattered reality in two. Mrs. Morgan, I need you to sit down. There's news about your husband. If any of this has ever happened to you, if you've ever received a call that changed everything in a second, if you've ever lost someone you thought you'd have decades more of, if you've ever discovered that stability is a fragile illusion that collapses without warning, share it in the comments, because stories like these need to be told. And you're not alone. Michael had life insurance. $100,000 from his work as an electrician. That should have been enough for Rachel to get back on her feet. To pay the mortgage while she figured out her next steps. To give the children time to process the trauma without adding financial instability. It wasn't, because the insurance company, Liberty Life Insurance, found a clause, a small one, buried on page 17 of a contract that nobody reads completely. Exclusion of accidents related to alcohol consumption. Michael's toxicology report showed a blood alcohol concentration of 0.02%. Completely legal, well below the 0.08% limit, equivalent to half a beer a few hours earlier. Nothing that would affect his driving. But the insurance company argued, any presence of alcohol invalidates coverage under the exclusion clause. Rachel fought for 8 months. Phone calls, emails, appeals. She even tried consulting a lawyer, who said, technically, they have a right under contract. Fighting would cost you more in legal fees than you would win. I'm sorry. So Rachel lost $100,000. She lost the safety net that should have protected her family while she rebuilt her life without Michael. And the savings they had, $8,000, meticulously saved over 5 years of marriage, went to their funeral. Because Rachel couldn't bury her husband in a cheap coffin. Not in front of 8- and 5-year-old children who were already devastated. Not when Ethan asked in a broken voice, "Is Daddy going to have a nice funeral, like in Grandma's pictures?" So Rachel chose a decent coffin, a respectable ceremony. She gave Michael the send-off he deserved, and he was left with nothing. If this part resonated with you, if you felt the injustice of an insurance company denying coverage due to a cruel technicality, the impossibility of choices faced by a young widow, the collapse of everything that should have protected her family, leave a like. Because recognizing these brutal realities is the first step to changing them. The mortgage on the house where Rachel and Michael raised their children was $1,200 a month. Michael's salary as an electrician paid comfortably, $60,000 a year. Not rich, but enough for the modest middle class. Rachel's salary as a part-time administrative assistant, $1,400 a month. She worked 20 hours a week to be available when the children got out of school. Supplemental income, never intended to support a family. But what happened? After Michael died, it became his only source of income. The math doesn't add up. It never has. $1,400 against $1,200 for a mortgage leaves $200 for everything else: food, utilities, gas, clothes for growing children. Impossible. Rachel was a month late. The bank called. "We understand the difficult situation, but the payment needs to be made." The payment was delayed for the second month. The bank sent a formal notification. In the third month, the bank foreclosed on the mortgage. 6 months after losing her husband, Rachel lost her home. The home where Ethan took his first steps. Where Lily was born and returned from the hospital. Where Michael painted the children's room blue and pink. Where memories of a decade of life were embedded in every wall. It lost. And she moved with the children to a 1-bedroom apartment in a cheaper part of Ridgemont. A rundown complex with peeling paint and transient neighbors. $600 a month. All she could afford. Ethan and Lily share a tiny room. Rachel sleeps on the living room sofa. It's not a home. It's survival. If you want to see more stories like this about people facing systemic collapse after tragedy, about how poverty is punished instead of helped, about moments where one person's decision to help changes everything, subscribe to the channel, because Rachel's journey is only just beginning. And what happens when Sheriff decides to intervene? You'll want to see every moment. Part-time work turned into full-time work out of sheer necessity. Rachel now works 40 hours, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And her salary went up $2,800 a month. But daycare for 2 children, $800 a month. Rachel can't afford it. So she does what millions of poor mothers do. She improvises in a way that the system calls negligence, but reality calls the only option. Ethan, 8 years old, looks after Lily, 5 years old. After school until Rachel returns at 6 in the afternoon. Child, taking care of child. Not because Rachel is a bad mother, but because the alternative is hunger, and the car. It broke down 3 months ago. Transmission? Repairs would cost $1,200. Rachel doesn't have one, so she walks. 45 minutes to work, 45 minutes back. In November. In the cold that cuts through the thin coat she bought at a thrift store. Because public bus fare costs $3 a day, $60 a month. That's the difference between paying the electricity bill or not. And now, on the eve of Thanksgiving, a holiday, where everyone supposedly gives thanks for blessings, Rachel has $12.22 in her bank account, $7 in coins in her pocket, and 2 children who haven't had a decent meal in a week. So she went to the market. She tried to buy the bare minimum: bread, peanut butter, milk, a few apples for Lily, who loves fruit. $14.32, and he couldn't pay. She was escorted out, publicly humiliated, treated like a criminal. for the crime of being poor in a society that punishes poverty as a moral failing. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Rachel Morgan's transformation from a woman with a stable life to a desperate mother counting pennies in a supermarket didn't happen in a moment. It happened in 1,000 small defeats, 1,000 impossible decisions, 1,000 moments where the system that should have protected her chose to punish her. And to understand why she's being escorted out of the supermarket on Thanksgiving Eve, you need to understand the complete journey, every blow, every failure, every moment where hope died a little more. Rachel Morgan wasn't always this woman. 14 months ago, which feels like a lifetime, but also like yesterday, she had a future. Not glamorous, not rich, but solid, predictable. The kind of life the American middle class builds brick by brick through hard work and careful planning. She and Michael met when they were young. Rachel was 21, working at a dental clinic as a receptionist. Michael was 23, completing an apprenticeship as an electrician. They met at a mutual friend's barbecue. Nothing cinematic, just two young people laughing about cheap beer and burnt hamburgers. They got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, 50 people, tight budget but full of love. And they built a life, slowly, carefully. They bought a house for years after getting married. Not a mansion, a modest 3-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood. A $1,200 a month mortgage that seemed manageable with a combined salary of $65,000 a year. Ethan was born a year later, planned, desired. Michael painted the room blue. Rachel decorated it with a space-themed stars and planets, because Ethan, still in the womb, already had a name that meant strong, and they imagined their son looking at the sky, dreaming big. Lily arrived 3 years later, a surprise, but a welcome one. Another mouth to feed meant a tighter budget. But love knows no financial limits. Rachel reduced her working hours to part-time after Lily was born. It was a deliberate decision. She wanted to be present when the children came home from school. She wanted to be a mother who helped with homework, who made homemade snacks, who listened to their stories about their day. Her salary dropped to $1,400 a month. But Michael's salary now, a fully licensed electrician, increased to $60,000 annually, $5,000 a month. Enough to cover mortgage, bills, food, and even save $100 a month. They weren't rich, but they were stable, secure, and happy in small, important ways. Until Wednesday, September 16th. Last year, Michael left for work at 7 in the morning. He kissed Rachel. He hugged the children. "I love you. See you at dinner." Final words. Words that nobody ever knows are final until later. At 6:15 p.m., the phone rang. Rachel answered while stirring pasta on the stove. Ethan and Lily were coloring at the table. "Mrs. Morgan, this is Deputy Williams from the County Sheriff's Department. You need to sit down. I have news about your husband." The world stopped. It didn't slow down. It stopped, as if gravity switched off for a second. "What? Is he okay?" "Mrs. Morgan, there was an accident. At the intersection of Highway 9 and Oak Street, a truck ran a red light. The impact was severe. Paramedics did everything they could. But your husband, Michael, did not survive. I am so sorry." Words that make no sense. They can't make sense, because Michael was alive this morning. He kissed her. He said, "I love you." No, there's a mistake. Michael is careful. It wasn't his fault. Witnesses confirm it. The truck driver ran a red light. Her husband had no chance to avoid it. Death was instantaneous. He didn't suffer the comfort she sought, but it was empty, because instantaneity doesn't change the fact that her husband, the father of her children, the man she loved for decades, disappeared in a second. The funeral was a week later. Rachel spent $8,000, every penny of their savings, because Ethan asked, with tears streaming down his face, "Is Dad going to have a nice funeral, like Grandma did?" And Rachel couldn't say no. She couldn't bury Michael in the cheap coffin that funeral home offered for budget-conscious people. Not in front of children already devastated. So he chose a mahogany coffin, a ceremony in a church, a modest reception afterwards. He gave Michael a dignified send-off, and he was left without savings. But life insurance should cover it. $100,000. Policy through Michael's work. Standard benefit. Rachel filled out the paperwork a week after the funeral. She waited. 6 weeks later, he received a letter. No check. Denial. After reviewing the toxicology report, we determined that Mr. Michael Morgan had a detectable level of alcohol in his blood at the time of the accident. Under Clause 7.3b of the policy, accidents related to alcohol consumption are excluded from coverage. Claim denied. Rachel called immediately. Her hands were trembling. There's a mistake. Michael barely drank. And the toxicology report showed 0.02%. That's completely legal. I understand your frustration, Ms. Morgan. But the policy specifies any detectable presence of alcohol voids coverage under the exclusion clause. The legal driving limit is not relevant to determining insurance. But he had a beer at lunch. Hours before, it didn't affect anything. The truck ran a red light. Unfortunately, the presence of alcohol invalidates coverage regardless of the cause of the accident. The decision is final. Rachel hired a lawyer. Free consultation. He read the policy. He nodded. Ms. Morgan, technically, the insurance company is entitled. The clause is clear. Fighting it would cost $20,000 to $30,000 in fees, and the chance of winning, maybe 40%. I don't recommend it. So Rachel lost $100,000, a safety net that should have given her time to rebuild her life, to process the trauma, to figure out how to be a single mother without financial ruin. He left, and the bills kept coming. Mortgage, utilities, food, clothes for the children, the cost of simply existing. Rachel's salary, $1,400 a month, working part-time, didn't even come close to covering it. The mortgage alone was $1,200. She was a month late. The bank called. We understand the difficult situation, Ms. Morgan, but your mortgage payment needs to be made by the 15th, or you will incur a late fee. Rachel promised to pay. She didn't pay. She didn't have the money. The second month, the bank sent a formal letter. Notice of default, in red letters, threatening. In the third month, the bank initiated mortgage foreclosure. And 6 months after burying her husband, Rachel lost her home. The home where Ethan learned to walk, where Lily said her first word, where every room had memories embedded in the walls. The bank foreclosed. It sold at auction, and Rachel had 30 days to leave. She found an apartment in a rundown complex on the other side of town. Maple Ridge Apartments. Misleading name, there's nothing like a ridge. Just low concrete buildings with peeling paint. $600 a month. 1 bedroom. Ethan and Lily share. Rachel sleeps on a worn-out sofa that came with the place. It's not a home. It's shelter. Basic existence. Part-time work was no longer an option. Rachel needed an income. So she went full-time, 40 hours a week. $2,800 per month gross. After taxes. Approximately $2,300. But full-time means it's not available when the children get out of school at 3. Daycare would cost $800 a month for both of them. Rachel can't afford it. So she does what millions of poor mothers do. She leaves 8-year-old Ethan in charge of 5-year-old Lily for 3 hours until she gets home at 6. Child, caring for child. The system calls it negligence. Reality calls it the only option available. And 3 months ago, her car, a 2008 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles, broke down. Transmission. The mechanic said, it'll cost $1,200 to fix, or you can sell it for scrap for $300. Rachel didn't have $1,200. She sold it for scrap. $300 went towards back rent. And now he walks 45 minutes to work. 45 back. In November, where the temperature drops to 35 degrees, and the wind cuts through a thin coat he bought at a thrift store for $12, because public bus fares cost $3 a day, $15 a week, $60 a month. And $60 is the difference between paying for electricity or not. So Rachel walks, in the cold, in the rain, in the darkness, early in the morning and late at night, because the alternative is literally having no light at home. It's Thanksgiving Eve, and Rachel has $12.22 in her bank account, $7 in coins that she carries in her pocket, and 2 children who haven't eaten adequate protein in a week. So she went to the market. She tried to buy the bare minimum: bread for sandwiches, peanut butter for protein, milk for Lily, who needs calcium, and for small apples because Lily loves fruit, and Rachel can't remember the last time she bought something fresh. $14.32, and he couldn't pay. $2.10 away. She was escorted out, publicly humiliated, in front of her children, in front of a market crowded with families buying extravagant party supplies, for the crime of not having $2. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Rachel's humiliation at the Riverside Market didn't happen in a vacuum. Wasn't an isolated moment of bad luck or unfortunate circumstance. It was the culmination of 14 months of systemic failures, of a community that judges instead of helping, of every institution that should have protected a young widow with 2 children, choosing to punish poverty as if it were a character flaw. And to understand why no one in that market offered to help, why 6 people in line sighed impatiently, instead of offering $2, you need to understand how society as a whole failed Rachel long before she reached that checkout counter. The system doesn't fail all at once. It fails in layers, in bureaucratic decisions, in policies written by people who have never faced a choice between food and electricity, in the casual judgments of those who see poverty as a moral failing instead of a result of circumstances. Michael's family was the first to fail. At the funeral, while Rachel was still in shock, while Ethan and Lily cried, not fully understanding that Dad would never return mother-in-law, Patricia pulled her aside. "Rachel, we need to talk about our financial situation now." "Patricia, we just buried Michael." "Exactly. And you need guidance. Michael mentioned that you weren't saving properly. You were spending on nonsense, expensive bicycles, eating out, and now, without proper planning, you're vulnerable. Nonsense." Patricia called Ethan's birthday bikes, $60 from Target, which he begged for months, nonsense. She called for dinners a year at Applebee's to celebrate birthdays, nonsense. As if living with minimal joy is a crime deserving of poverty as punishment. "Patricia, we had life insurance, $100,000. That should have been enough. It should be. But apparently it isn't. And that's a planning failure. If they had saved more, diversified their investments, you wouldn't be in this position." Rachel didn't have the energy to argue. She was burying her husband, trying to explain to her 8- and 5-year-old children that Daddy wasn't coming back. She didn't have the emotional capacity to defend financial decisions against her mother-in-law, who inherited money and never worked a day in her life, and Michael's family. No one offered help. Not financial, not practical, just performative judgment disguised as concern. Rachel's family wasn't any better. Her mother died of cancer 5 years ago. Her father, Robert, remarried 18 months later to a woman Rachel had met 3 times. Robert called after the funeral, just once. "Rachel, I'm so sorry about Michael. I know it's difficult. Dad, I'm sinking. Insurance was denied. I'm going to lose my house. And my children, I understand. But Rachel, our retirement pension barely covers our expenses. Linda has medical needs. We can't help financially. I'm not asking for much. Just something, anything, so I don't lose the house where my grandchildren live. Grandchildren I only see once a year because you live so far away." Defensive tone. "Rachel, I did my part raising you. Now you're an adult. You need to figure it out on your own. He called again. Christmas. 2 weeks after Rachel lost her house. Merry Christmas. How are the children? No mention of crisis. No offer of help. Just the superficial courtesy of a father who has fulfilled his biological obligation and considers his job done. Government assistance should be a safety net. It should catch families who fall through cracks in the system. But assistance? Is a Kafkaesque labyrinth designed more to discourage than to help? Rachel applied for SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, a meal voucher program, a week after losing her home. He filled out forms, 42 pages, documenting income, expenses, family situation, everything. 6 weeks later, he received a letter, denied. Family income exceeds eligibility limits. Rachel earned $1,400 a month at the time. For a family of 3, the federal poverty line for 3 people is approximately $1,800 per month. Rachel was $100 over the limit. $100 that completely disqualified her from food assistance. So a family earning $1,400 below the poverty line by any reasonable metric is too rich for food stamps. Mathematics doesn't make sense unless you understand that the system is designed to exclude, not include. Rachel applied for TANF temporary assistance for families in need. Money? Direct assistance. Order received. Processing time, 4 to 6 months. 6 months. Children can't wait 6 months to eat. Rent doesn't wait 6 months to be paid. Rachel called weekly. Still processing. Please be patient. 14 months later, still processing. The job offered zero compassion. Mr. Dunn, the manager of the accounting firm where Rachel works as an administrative assistant, made expectations clear in a meeting 3 months after Michael died. Rachel, I understand you're going through a difficult time. Losing your husband is traumatic. But I need to be honest. The company needs reliability. And recently, frequent absences are impacting operations. Absences. I missed 2 in 3 months. Once, when Lily had a fever of 103 and couldn't go to school. Another time when Ethan had a mandatory meeting with the principal. Twice in 3 months is significant in a small team. And yesterday, you left 30 minutes early because the bank was foreclosing on the house. And there was a deadline to sign the paperwork or lose everything with no chance of recovering belongings. Rachel, Tom DeDunn, stiffened. I understand, honestly, but I can't run an office where employees aren't trustworthy. So let me be clear. Further absences or unauthorized departures will result in disciplinary action, including possible suspension or termination. So what do I do when Lily gets sick? Leave a 5-year-old child alone? That's your problem to solve, not mine. Dunn stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. I expect reliability from now on. 2 weeks later, Lily got sick again. The flu. Rachel had no choice but to skip work. He received a 1-day suspension without pay. $112 that he couldn't afford to lose. The school also weighed in. Ms. Morrison, Ethan's 3rd grade teacher, called on Tuesday afternoon. Mrs. Morgan, I need to talk to you about Ethan. I'm worried. Is he okay? Academically he's doing well, but I've noticed things. He's been wearing the same clothes 3 days in a row. And today he casually mentioned that he didn't have breakfast because Mom didn't have time. And there's... Morrison hesitated. An odor. Shame burned through Rachel. Mrs. Morrison, the situation at home is difficult. My husband died. We're struggling financially. And yes, sometimes Ethan skips breakfast because I leave early for work and can't supervise and clothes. I have 3 outfits that fit him because I can't afford to buy more. Have you considered assistance? There are programs, community resources. I tried. SNAP denied it. TANF has been processing for months. Church offered prayers and family. Rachel didn't finish. I'm doing the best I can. I understand, but Ethan is suffering. And if the situation doesn't improve, The school has an obligation to report it to Child Protective Services. A threat, disguised as concern, but a threat nonetheless. Are you saying you're going to call CPS because my son wore the same clothes twice? I'm saying that if this pattern of negligence continues, the school is obligated to report it. I hope it doesn't come to that. Morrison hung up, and Rachel sat in the car in the school parking lot, trembling. Because CPS doesn't help. CPS removes children. And Rachel has already lost her husband, her home, her security. She can't lose her children. The church where Rachel and Michael got married offered spiritual help. That's all. Pastor James visited Rachel's apartment 6 weeks after the funeral. He sat on a worn sofa. He looked around the small, sparsely furnished place. Rachel, the congregation is praying for you. We want you to know that you are not alone. Thank you, Pastor. But honestly, I need more than prayers. I need practical help. Food, assistance with rent, something concrete. Faith will sustain you and the children. God provides for those who trust in Him. God doesn't pay rent, Pastor, and children don't eat faith. Frustration leaked out. The church has a charity fund. I saw it in the bulletin. Can you help? The fund is for emergencies. And technically, your situation is chronic, not a one-off emergency. Husband dead, home lost, no money for food. Isn't that an emergency? It's a difficult situation. But Rachel, many families are struggling. If we helped them all, the fund would run dry. Pastor James stood up. We will continue praying. And if you think of specific ways the church can help spiritually, let me know. Spiritually, as if hunger is a spiritual problem, and the market. The market is where all failures culminated publicly. For 14 months, Rachel bought only the essentials. Generic brands, cheap white bread, peanut butter in a giant jar because it makes more meals, powdered milk because fresh milk spoils quickly, pasta, rice, canned beans, no fresh fruit because it spoils, no vegetables except for cheap carrots, no meat except when heavily discounted, no snacks, no luxuries, survival, not nutrition. And today, on Thanksgiving Eve, a holiday when supermarkets are packed with families buying 20-pound turkeys, homemade pies, and organic ingredients, Rachel tried to buy the most modest meal possible. Bread, peanut butter, milk, 4 apples for Lily, $14.32, and he couldn't pay. $2.10 away. No one offered to help. 6 people in line behind her all, with carts full of food worth. Hundreds sighed impatiently. They complained about the delay. They judged silently. And the manager called security as if Rachel were a criminal. Because in a society that punishes poverty, being poor is treated as a moral crime, and a desperate mother trying to feed her children. She's an inconvenience to be removed, not a person to be helped. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the moment where Sheriff James Harding Realithichet happened to Rachel Ware, he acknowledges not only a woman being escorted out, but systemic injustice being publicly executed. Executed as in about heroism. It's about attention. It's about someone finally paying real attention instead of turning a blind eye like a dozen other people did. And that attention, that's the first crack in the isolation Rachel has lived through for 14 months. Sheriff James Harding, 38 years old, 12 years wearing a badge, is at the Riverside Market on Thanksgiving Eve, doing what half the town is doing, buying holiday provisions. He's not in uniform, civilian clothes, jeans, flannel shirt, light jacket, but he carries his badge on his belt, a habit he's never broken, even on his days off. And his cart is full of items that his wife Sarah meticulously listed: a 15-pound turkey, fresh cranberries, ingredients for homemade stuffing, marshmallows for sweet potatoes, and a specific red wine she requested. Budget is not a concern. James earns $85,000 as elected sheriff. Sarah is a nurse, $60,000. No children, no dependents. Thanksgiving costs $400 and doesn't affect their finances in the slightest. James is in row 5 when he hears a commotion. Not shouting, not fighting, but a change in tone. Tension in the air that years of law enforcement have taught him to recognize instantly. Manager's voice, loud, authoritative, security. James looks at the adjacent cashier 03. He sees a woman, in her early 30s, thin in a way that suggests not choice but necessity. To children, a boy of perhaps 8 holding her hand tightly, which James recognizes as an attempt to anchor, to protect. A little girl 5, crying without fully understanding but feeling terror for her mother. And the manager, Mr. Patterson. James vaguely recognizes him from community gatherings, signaling security as if women were a physical threat. James can't hear the whole conversation from where he is. 5 people and the noise of a crowded market between them, but he sees body language. And body language tells all. Rachel, though James doesn't know her name, yet is huddled up, shoulders hunched in, head down. Not the posture of someone aggressive or demanding. The posture of someone completely defeated, ashamed, trying to make herself smaller in order to disappear. There is no confrontation, there is no resistance. Only the silent surrender of someone who has already lost too many battles to fight yet another. Security arrives, young, 22 years old, probably his first job, and he approaches with obvious discomfort but professionalism. "Miss, I need to ask you to leave." Rachel's voice, James hears fragments, now broken. "Please, I'm just a few cents short. I can come back tomorrow, but the manager asked me to escort her." "Let's go." And Rachel is guided toward the exit, not dragged, not violently touched, but clearly removed. Children following. Boy looking back at the shopping bag abandoned on the counter. The gaze of a child who understands that that food they almost had is disappearing. James watches, and something in him, an instinct forged in 2 decades of witnessing injustice, or a memory of growing up with a single mother who made similar choices, or simply basic human decency, prevents him from turning away. He continues watching after Rachel disappears through automatic doors. He sees the manager walk to the counter, pick up the abandoned bag, and see its contents when the manager takes it back to the shelves. White bread, generic brand, peanut butter, large jar, milk, plastic gallon jug, and 4 small apples, the most basic possible. No turkey, no pie, no party ingredients. Survival, literally. And James mentally calculates. Bread, $3. Peanut butter, 5. Milk, 4. Apples, maybe 2.5. Total approximately $14. She couldn't afford $14, and she was escorted out because of it. The manager returns to his post. The adjacent cashier, 19-year-old, makes a comment that James hears perfectly now that the noise has decreased slightly. Holiday eves always bring this type of person, trying to get charity. That type, the manager agrees. A tone of performative weariness, always an excuse, always drama. The policy is clear, no money, no food. That type. James hadn't planned on saying anything. He was there to buy groceries, go home, help Sarah prepare dinner for her parents tomorrow, not get involved in supermarket drama. But the words come out, a calm yet unmistakable tone. The manager turns around. He sees James and recognizes him immediately, even without his uniform. His badge on his belt is visible, and everyone in Ridgemont knows Sheriff Harding. I didn't see him there. Clearly, James walks out of his line. He approaches the counter where the manager is. What was that? A lady trying to buy something without enough money. Store policy is clear, no exceptions. I can't give charity to everyone who comes in claiming hardship. How much was it? How much? Patterson nodded. How much did she owe to complete the purchase? I don't know exactly. $2 and something. Why? James is suing. His shopping cart bill is $400. A turkey alone is $50. And a manager kicked out a mother with 2 small children, on the eve of Thanksgiving, a holiday about gratitude and community, for $2. You kicked out a mother with 2 small children. Thanksgiving Eve, for $2. Politics is politics, Sheriff. If you start making exceptions, everyone will want them. So the rule is, pay full price or don't take it. Politics is a convenient excuse for cruelty. James takes out his wallet. Where's her bag? I've already returned items to the shelves. Take it again. I'll pay the difference. Patterson hesitates. Because technically, the sheriff doesn't have authority over store policies. But a sheriff in a store, Evan, a civilian. One carries weight, presence. And Patterson doesn't want confrontation. Okay, I'll go get it. He goes. He gets the items again. Bread, peanut butter, milk, apples. Cashier scans. $14.32. James hands over $15. Keep the change. He takes the bag, and she leaves, leaving her own shopping cart for $100 worth of provisions that Sarah had asked for in the middle of the store. Because suddenly, turkey and wine and marshmallows seem obscene. When a woman can't even buy bread. The parking lot is cold. Late November. Low sun, biting wind. And James is looking for his wife and children. Not hard to find, they're sitting on a bus seat next to the store. There's no bus nearby. The line that served this stop was cut 3 years ago due to low usage, but the bench remains. And Rachel sits there with her children pressed against her. Boy, Ethan, quiet in a way that 8-year-olds shouldn't be. Girl, Lily huddled against her mother. Sobs subsiding, but tears still wetting her face. Rachel is looking at the ground, not at passing cars, not at people leaving stores with full shopping carts, at concrete, as if she can't bear to see a normalcy that no longer exists. James approaches, boots click against the asphalt. Rachel looks up, and sees first a badge, then a face. Panic flashed across her face, immediate, visceral, because sheriff approaching a poor mother with children rarely means good news. I didn't do anything wrong. The words come out hurriedly, defensively. I just didn't have enough money. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't causing trouble. I just needed food. I know. James raises his hand, a gesture of peace. And I agree. You did nothing wrong. Rachel soothes. Confusion replaces panic. Then why? James picks up a bag. Bread, peanut butter, milk, apples. I bought your food. I paid the difference. Rachel looks at the bag, then at him, then back at the bag. As if she can't process what she's seeing. Why, she whispered. Because $2 shouldn't be a factor between children and a meal. Especially on the eve of a holiday. He extends the bag. Rachel hesitates, her hand rises. She stops, pride clashing with need. Years of being judged, of accepting charity, being treated as an admission of failure, of learning that nothing is free. It all struggles against simply taking the bag. But necessity wins. It always wins when you have hungry children. She picks up the bag. She holds it as if it were more precious than gold. Why? For her? Yes, thank you. Her voice breaks. I'll pay you back, as soon as I can. I promise. It is not necessary. I need it. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's human helping human. James pauses. He looks at the children. A boy observing with wide eyes. A girl still clinging to her mother. May I ask, how did you get here? We walk. We live on Maple Street, about 2 miles away. James looks at the children again. Lily is shivering slightly. Her coat is too thin for November. Ethan is in sneakers with cracked soles, his little toe almost visible through a hole. And Rachel is in a jacket that looks like it's seen 10 winters. I'll give you a ride. No need. We're used to it. It's not a request. It's an offer. And I'm going to insist. Tom is kind, but firm. The kind of tone that leaves no room for argument without being condescending. Rachel nods, because she's tired. She's cold. And for the first time, in 14 months, someone is offering help without judgment attached. And as James guides them to his pickup truck, the Ford F-150 he uses for work, he realizes Rachel isn't a case. She isn't a statistic. She's a person, a mother, who is drowning while the world watches and judges instead of reaching out. And something in him, something that goes beyond the duty of a badge, decides he's not just going to give you a ride. You're going to understand what happened, and if you can, you're going to help. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the event that truly connects James and Rachel, that transforms the unknown sheriff and the desperate widow into two people who see each other as human beings, instead of stereotypes, isn't just about a bag of food or a ride. It's about dignity being restored at a time when Rachel forgot she deserved any. It's about someone finally recognizing humanity behind poverty. And that 2-mile journey in James's pickup truck, it will reveal a truth neither of them was prepared to face. James's pickup truck, a dark blue Ford F-150, 10 years old but well-maintained, is parked 3 rows away. He guides Rachel and the children through the crowded parking lot, people pushing full strollers, families laughing. The normalcy of a holiday eve that seems like a world different from where Rachel lives. James opens the back door first. "Kids, here," Tom says gently. He helps Ethan up. Then, Lily, who hesitates until Rachel nods encouragingly. "Seatbelts," James checks. Both children are properly fastened. And then he opens the passenger door for Rachel. She stops. "Can I sit in the back with them? The front seat is empty. And the heater works better here." Not requested. Practical observation. Rachel goes upstairs. She holds the bag of food in her lap as if someone might take it away. James closes the door. He circles the truck. He gets in, start the engine. The heater immediately blows hot air. And Rachel really feels warmth for the first time in hours. Because she walked 45 minutes in the November cold. And she sat on a metal bench for 15 minutes after being humiliated at the market Maple Street. James confirms as he pulls out of the parking lot. Yes, Maple Ridge Apartments, number 14. James knows the area. The cheapest part of Ridgemont. 2-story buildings with peeling paint. The area where the sheriff's department frequently responds to calls domestic disputes, petty theft, occasionally drugs. It's not exactly dangerous, but it's not safe either. Especially for a single mother with 2 young children. They drive in silence for minutes. James doesn't force a conversation. Rachel is clearly processing market humiliation, awkwardness of accepting help, the presence of a sheriff she's still unsure if she can fully trust. But then Lily, 5 years old, her childlike curiosity eventually overcoming shyness, asks from behind, "Are you a police officer?" James looks in the rearview mirror. He sees a small girl with big eyes. Something like that. "I'm sheriff. The kind of police officer who leads a department. As captain. Exactly like the captain." James smiles slightly. "My dad liked the police. He used to say that you help people." Past Alec, James notices, and glances quickly at Rachel. He sees her stiffen. Lily, Rachel's voice carries a warning. "Your dad was right," James says gently. "Our job is to help. But you weren't working. Why did you help Mom?" An innocent question, but it pierces something. Because Lily, 5 years old, has already learned that help needs a reason. That it doesn't come without a motive. Because his mother needed it. And helping doesn't require a uniform. James pauses. Sometimes you just need to see someone in need and choose to do something. Silence. Then Lily said, "Thank you for helping Mom." She was sad. Rachel quickly wipes her eyes. She doesn't want to cry in front of her children. She doesn't want strangers to see more weakness. But James sees it and doesn't comment. He just keeps driving. 2 minutes later, his curiosity gets the better of him. "Can I ask? Your situation, is it temporary?" Or he leaves the question open, giving Rachel room to decide how much to share. Rachel hesitates. Because telling the story means admitting failure. It means exposing how completely her life has fallen apart. But also, James has seen worse, her being escorted out of a market for not having $2. Hiding it now seems pointless. My husband died 14 months ago. Car accident. Her voice is flat, emotional but controlled. We had life insurance, $100,000. It should have been enough. But the insurance company found a clause. They refused to pay. Clause. Exclusion of accidents related to alcohol. Michael had 0.02% alcohol in his blood. Completely legal. But the insurance company argued that any presence of alcohol invalidates coverage. Bitterness seeps out. I fought for 8 months. I lost. James grips the steering wheel. He knows insurance company tactics. He's seen families destroyed by technical denials. I'm sorry. And then, everything fell apart. We lost our house. I had to work full-time, but childcare is too expensive. My car broke down, and now I'm here, trying to feed my children with coins, and failing at that too. The last part comes out broken, and Rachel covers her face. She doesn't want him to see tears, but James understands. Not superficially, deeply, because that's how he grew up. My mother was a single mother. My father left when I was 6. She worked 3 jobs trying to keep a roof over our heads. And I remember nights when she counted pennies. I remember choosing between food and heating. I remember how the entire system treated her as a failure instead of seeing her fighting against the impossible. Pause. So when I see you, I don't see failure. I see a mother fighting a system that was designed to punish poverty. Rachel looks at him, really looks, and sees not pity, not judgment, recognition, empathy forged in experience. How did she manage it? Her mother. She didn't do it alone. It took years. And help little things where she could find them. A neighbor who gave her leftovers. A church that finally did more than pray. A teacher who paid for my shoes when mine tore. James had seen her on Maple Street, and eventually, she built a life. Not a rich one, but a stable one. And I learned, sometimes surviving is victory enough. Words touch Rachel in a way nothing has in months, because someone understands, not theoretically, viscerally. They arrive at Maple Ridge Apartments, a dilapidated complex that looks even worse at dusk. Peeling paint, some cracked windows, metal stairs with visible rust. James parks and sees apartment 14, ground floor, door with peeling green paint, window with a cheap curtain that doesn't completely block the light, but he also sees a large yellow envelope stuck to the door, the kind James recognizes from countless work calls. Eviction notice written in red letters. Rachel sees it too, and color drains from her face. No, not now. She gets out of the pickup truck, runs to the door, rips off the envelope, opens it with hands trembling so much she almost tears the paper. James leaves. He approaches as Rachel reads. He sees her shoulders slump. He sees utter defeat replace the fragile hope that maybe free food meant the day was getting better. What do you say? He keeps his voice low. Rachel doesn't speak. She just hands over the paper. Her hands are trembling so much that James has to hold them. He reads, "Final eviction notice, Miss Rachel Morgan. You are 2 full months behind on rent, totaling $1,200. Previous notifications were ignored. This is the final notification. You have 72 hours, 3 days, to pay the total of $1,800, 2 months overdue, plus the current month due, or vacate the premises. Failure to comply will result in legal action and forced removal. Mr. Raymond Chen, owner 72 hours, 3 days, and $1,800 that Rachel doesn't have. She has no possibility of obtaining. I can't. I don't have." Rachel can't form complete sentences. Panic is consuming her processing capacity. James looks at the date on the notification. Posted today, so the deadline. Sunday. Thanksgiving Eve is Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 3 days. Due. You have somewhere to go. If you're evicted. No, family can't. I don't have any friends anymore. Her voice is hollow. And if I'm evicted, Child Protective Services will. They'll take my children. Because homeless mothers can't take care of children. They'll put them in foster care. Separate them. Tears stream freely now. I lost Michael. I lost my home. I lost everything. But I can't lose my babies. They're all I have. Ethan and Lily are still in the truck. But Ethan is watching. Through the window, seeing his mother fall apart, and his expressionate years trying to be brave, trying to be the man of the house, breaks James's heart. Because James knows what comes next. He's seen it hundreds of times in his career. Families evicted, children in foster care, and the system doesn't reunite families easily, especially when the mother has no resources. Rachel may take months, years to regain enough stability to prove she can care for children, and in the meantime, Ethan and Lily grow up in unfamiliar homes, possibly separated because few foster homes take siblings. James faces a decision. Protocol states, children in unstable environments, imminent eviction, severe food insecurity, mother unable to provide basic needs equals report, CPS, it's the law. Obligation of a mandated reporter. But James also knows, reporting CPS doesn't help Rachel, it destroys her. Because CPS doesn't give $1,800, CPS removes children. How much do you have now? What's the total? Rachel wipes her face, checks her purse, counts the money. $12.22 in the account, plus 7 in coins. $19. $1,781 away from having children. James looks at the notification again. He looks at Rachel, at the truck where the children are waiting. And he makes a decision that goes against every protocol, but follows every instinct of decency. I'll help. What? No. It can't be. I can, and I will. Firm tone. But you need to trust me. And you need to give me time to figure out a solution. Why? Rachel shakes her head. Why do you care? You don't even know me. Because I saw what happens when no one helps. I saw families destroyed by a system that punishes poverty. And I'm not going to watch it again. James pauses. And Rachel, you're not a failure. You're a survivor. And survivors deserve a chance to move on. For the first time in 14 months, Rachel feels something beyond despair. A microscopic possibility that maybe she won't lose everything. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the moment Rachel sees the yellow envelope stuck to her door, when she realizes she's not just facing hunger or poverty, but a full-blown existential crisis unfolding in 72 hours, isn't just about money. It's about how the system transforms temporary hardship into permanent destruction. It's about how 3 days can be the difference between a struggling mother and a mother losing her children forever. And what James is about to discover about the true danger Rachel faces will force him to choose between following protocol and doing what his conscience demands. Rachel clutches the notification, her hands trembling so violently that the paper makes an audible sound. Her eyes scan words she's already read 3 times, but her brain refuses to fully process them. 72 hours. 3 days. $1,800. Or you lose your apartment. And with an apartment, you lose your children. I can't. I don't have. Sentences fail to form. Panic is consuming the ability to articulate coherent thought. James gently takes the paper from her hands. He reads slowly, processing every detail. Posting date, today, Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve. Deadline, Sunday, 3 days. Amount due, $1,800. 2 months of back rent, $1,200, plus the current month, due $600. Are you 2 months late? Number of judgment. Just clarification. Yes, I was paying in installments. $300 here, $200 there. Everything I could. But Mr. Chunda landlord said last week that partial payments are no longer acceptable. He wants the full amount overdue, plus the current month's rent, or eviction. Rachel wipes her face, violently. irritated by her own tears. In 3 days. 3 days includes Thanksgiving, when everything is closed. So it's really 2 business days. Impossible. James looks around the complex Maple Ridge apartments. He knows it, not personally, but professionally. The department has responded here 17 times this year. Domestic disputes, car thefts. Once, a drug-related shooting that thankfully didn't injure anyone. It's not a safe place for a single mother with young children, but it's all Rachel can afford. And now, not even that. Do you have somewhere to go? If you're evicted, Rachel shakes her head. Small movement, defeated. No. Michael's family blames me for everything. They say, if we had planned better, I wouldn't be here. My father, he said he did his part raising me. Now I'm an adult, and it's my problem. Bitterness seeps out. Friends, I don't have any anymore. They all disappeared when I became poor. It's inconvenient to be associated with failure. So if I get evicted on Sunday, I'll go to a shelter. If there's room, and family shelters in the county have a 6-week waiting list. Rachel glances at the pickup truck where Ethan and Lily are waiting. Ethan watches through the back window. His face is tense with worry that a child shouldn't be carrying this. And if there's no room at the shelter, car, except I don't have a car. So, street, literally, and child protection services. They're going to take my children. Not speculation, certainty. Because a homeless mother can't properly care for children. CPS will say it's not a safe environment. They'll remove Ethan and Lily temporarily to foster care while I stabilize the situation, temporarily, which becomes permanent. Because how can I stabilize without a roof over my head? Without money, without resources? Her voice rises, not shouting, but on the verge of total collapse. The system requires housing to regain custody, but I can't have housing without working. I can't work without childcare. I can't pay for childcare without working. An impossible cycle. And while I'm trapped in it, Ethan and Lily grow up in strange homes. Possibly separated because few foster homes take siblings. James knows statistics. 70% of siblings in foster care are separated. Average time in the system is 2 years. Reunification rate when the mother doesn't have stable housing. Less than 40%. Rachel is right. If evicted, the likelihood of getting the children back is low. And the likelihood of Ethan and Lily growing up together. Almost zero. And how much do you have now? Total available. Rachel already knows the answer. She's counted. Mentally 100 times since receiving the notification. $19.22. 12 in the bill. 7 in coins. $1,781 away. It could also be $1 million. Next payment, Friday. In 2 days, $575 after taxes. But even if, she quickly calculates, even if I work double shifts and get overtime, I won't come close to $1,800 in 3 days. James looks at the notification again, then at Rachel, then at the pickup truck where 2 children wait, unaware that their world is about to completely crumble. And he makes a decision, against protocol, against the advice any superior would give, but following a conscience that doesn't allow him to watch his family being destroyed when he could prevent it. I'll help. Rachel looks at him. Shock. What? No, you can't. I can. And I will. $1,800. You don't. Nobody gives that kind of money to a stranger. I'm not just going to give. I'm going to find a solution. James is still processing exactly how, but compromise comes first. Details later. I know the owner, Mr. Chen. I can negotiate an extension. And I can connect you with real resources, not government bureaucracy, but organizations that actually help. What if it doesn't work? What if Chen refuses? So we found another way. James maintains a firm voice, not empty promises, real determination. But Rachel, you're not going to lose your children. Not if I can prevent it. Why? Broken question. Why do you care? You don't even know me. And I am nobody. A statistic. A problem. Why risk anything for me? James could give a simple answer, because it's the right job. But Rachel deserves the whole truth, because I saw what happens when nobody helps. My mother, that was Rachel, 30 years ago. A single mother. No resources. The system failed her repeatedly, and she almost lost me and my sister to CPS. Almost. A neighbor, a man who barely knew her bitter background, gave her a chance to breathe, to stabilize, and that chance, it saved our family. Pause. He died 10 years ago, and every time I see a situation like yours, I remember him, and I know what to do. Raw honesty, a vulnerability that James rarely shares. Rachel wipes her eyes. I can't pay it back. I'm not asking for payment. I'm paying in advance. James looks at the apartment, at the notification, at the children. But I need to know, will you fight? If you get the time, if you get the resources, will you fight to rebuild? Yes, without hesitation. I fought for 14 months. I didn't give up when the insurance company denied my claim. I didn't give up when I lost my house. I didn't give up when the whole city judged me. And I'm not going to give up now. So we have a deal. I'll help you fight, and together, we'll stop CPS from tearing this family apart. But what neither Rachel nor James fully realize yet, what the eviction notice reveals, when James reads it more carefully, is that there is an additional complication clause at the bottom. Anonymous complaints regarding inadequate living conditions for minors have been received. An inspection will be scheduled before any rental contracts are renewed. Someone reported Rachel. Someone claimed that children live in inadequate conditions. And even if James can afford the rent, Chen can refuse to renew based on documented concerns. A perfect trap. Because inadequate conditions, for a poor family, usually means a small apartment, few pieces of furniture, children occasionally alone because the mother works, no abuse, no intentional neglect, just poverty. But the system treats poverty as parental failure. And what if Chen refuses to renew? Rachel is evicted anyway. Not for lack of payment. For being poor in a way that someone decided is inappropriate. James doesn't mention it yet. Rachel is already on the verge of collapse. But he knows the problem is bigger than $1,800. Because someone wants Rachel evicted. Someone reported it. And James needs to find out who and why. Come in. Let me see the apartment. Why? Because if I'm going to help, I need to understand the whole situation. And because James saw a clause about inspection, you need to know what Chen will find. Rachel hesitates. An apartment is humiliating, proof of how far she's fallen. But also, hiding it doesn't help. She opens the door. James enters and sees a room. Small, clean, but sparsely furnished. An old sofa where Rachel obviously sleeps folded, blanket, pillow, tiny kitchen with a noisy refrigerator. Children's room visible through an open door, 2 small beds, toys organized in a box, drawings stuck to the wall. It's not a palace, but it's not filthy. It's not dangerous. It's a home that a poor mother maintains as best she can. James mentally documents everything. He doesn't see inadequate conditions. He sees poverty. A crucial difference that the system rarely acknowledges. It's clean, he says. Organized. Safe. Whatever anyone reported. Lies or exaggerations. Did someone report it? Rachel didn't see the clause. The notification mentions anonymous complaints. James shows it. Someone wants you evicted, and I'm using Chen as a tool. Who? Why? I don't know. But I'll find out. Because James recognizes patterns. Someone attacking a vulnerable mother. Not for the safety of the children, out of cruelty, or worse, for a hidden reason that James doesn't yet see. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the dilemma James faces when he leaves Rachel's apartment and returns to the truck where Ethan and Lily are. Waiting when he must decide between following the protocol he swore to uphold and doing what humanity demands is not abstract or theoretical. It's concrete, immediate. It's a choice between destroying his family today by following the law or saving his family and risking his career. And the hidden truth about this dilemma: there is no right answer, only a choice between two wrongs. And James must decide which wrong he can live with. James sits in the truck for a full minute before starting the engine. Rachel and the children are inside now. Apartment number 14 with the light dimly lit, and he is processing what he saw, what he knows, and what protocol dictates versus what his conscience demands. The protocol is clear, unequivocal. The training he received, the law he swore to uphold, the obligation he carries with a badge. Children in an environment with housing instability, imminent eviction, food insecurity, mother cannot afford $14 worth of food. Inadequate supervision, 8-year-old child, caring for a 5-year-old child. Risk of homelessness, 72 hours without housing. All of this adds up. Reporting to CPS is mandatory. It's the law. Mandatory reporter. James, as sheriff, has a legal obligation to report when he suspects a minor is at risk, and technically, Ethan and Lily are at risk. Not because Rachel is a bad mother, but because poverty creates instability that the system defines as neglect. James knows what happens after reporting. He's seen it hundreds of times in his 12-year career. CPS investigates. Social worker visits, sees small apartment, sparsely furnished, refrigerator with little food, children occasionally alone because mother works, and concludes, inadequate environment. It doesn't matter that Rachel works double shifts to feed her children. It doesn't matter that the apartment is clean, safe, and full of love. The system sees poverty as neglect. CPS removes children. Temporarily. For protection. Ethan and Lily go to foster care. And the statistics are brutal. 70% of siblings are separated. Because homes willing to take 2 siblings are rare. So Ethan goes to family on one side of the county. Lily goes to another. And they visit each other maybe once a month, if they're lucky. Rachel would have to prove stability to get them back. Which means stable employment impossible when depressed and desperate. Adequate housing impossible without a sufficiently paying job. Completion of parenting classes because the system assumes poverty is parental failure. Supervised visits that cost money she doesn't have. The process takes months, often years, and statistically, 40% of homeless mothers never regain full custody. James knows all this. He's seen it happen dozens of times in his 12 years as sheriff, and he faces an impossible choice. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the dilemma James faces isn't just about following rules versus breaking rules. It's about understanding that sometimes the legal system doesn't serve justice. It serves bureaucracy. And when protocol demands that you destroy families to protect children who don't need a mother's protection but a system that fails a mother when the law says report, but conscience screams help, you discover that a badge is just metal until you choose what it represents. James is standing in Rachel's small apartment. Ethan and Lily are now inside a thon, helping Lily take off her coat. Behaving like a child who's become a surrogate father too soon. Rachel is in the tiny kitchen trying to make tea with an old, whistling kettle. James is grappling with a dilemma that has no right answer. He's simply choosing between two wrongs. The protocol is clear, unquestionable. State law dictates that mandatory reporters, including law enforcement officers, must report suspected child neglect or abuse immediately. And neglect includes failure to provide basic needs, such as adequate housing, sufficient food, and appropriate supervision. Rachel is 72 hours away from becoming homeless. The children are experiencing severe food insecurity, admitted that they sometimes skip breakfast, and 8-year-old Ethan looks after 5-year-old Lily for 3 hours a day. By the letter of the law, James should report CPS. It's a legal obligation. Mandatory reporters, which include law enforcement, face criminal consequences for failing to report suspected negligence or abuse. Technically, leaving an 8-year-old to care for a 5-year-old without adult supervision is neglect. Severe food insecurity is neglect. Unstable living environment with imminent eviction. Neglect. James should call CPS tonight. Report it. Start an investigation. Let the system handle it. But James knows, deep down, viscerally, that CPS isn't going to help Rachel. It's going to destroy her. James is sitting in his pickup truck, alone. After dropping Rachel and the children off with the bag of groceries he paid for, engine off, heater muted, and phone in hand. CPS number is saved, frequently used. Part of the work. The protocol is clear, mandatory reporting. Any law enforcement officer who witnesses or suspects child neglect is legally obligated to report within 24 hours. Failure to report is a crime. It can cost you your badge, license, career, and Rachel's situation. Technically, she meets the criteria. Children in an unstable environment, severe food insecurity, imminent eviction that will result in homelessness. Ethan, 8 years old, caring for Lily, 5 years old, without adult supervision for hours. Any social worker would see this and say, risk. Remove children. Protect them now. Stabilize the family later. James should call. Report it. Follow the protocol that exists for a reason, to protect children in danger. But James also knows, with absolute certainty forged in 2 decades of law enforcement, what CPS does. It doesn't save families. It separates them. Ethan and Lily would go to the system. And the system? The system isn't designed to keep siblings together. There's always a shortage of foster homes willing to take multiple children. So Ethan, 8 years old, trying to be brave, trying to be a man, would go to one home. Lily, 5 years old, still desperately needing her mother, would go to another, separated. Different schools, different families, growing up without each other. And Rachel would have months, more likely years, to prove stability, to demonstrate that she has permanent housing, adequate income, and a suitable environment. Impossible without resources. Impossible without a system that truly helps, instead of punishing. Statistics that James knows by heart. Average time in foster care for children whose mothers are homeless. 26 months. Reunification rate. 38%, meaning 62% never return. And siblings. 73% are separated. Because foster homes that take in 2 or more siblings are rare. So if James follows protocol, if he reports Rachel to CPS, as required by the official, Ethan and Lily will likely go to different homes. They will grow up apart, and they have less than a 40% chance of returning to their mother. Rachel is right. Reporting CPS doesn't help. It destroys things. James is staying at Rachel's apartment, an apartment he inspected and found adequate. Not luxurious, but safe, clean, loved. Rachel is feeding the children. Peanut butter sandwiches food James bought. Ethan and Lily eat silently, sensing the tension but not fully understanding it. And James is processing the decision he needs to make. The protocol is clear. The state of name requires law enforcement officers to report suspected child neglect or abuse. This includes situations where a child is in imminent danger due to homelessness, inadequate food, or improper supervision. Rachel is 72 hours away from being homeless. Children are food insecure. He literally saw them being removed from the market because their mother couldn't afford $14. And 8-year-old Ethan takes care of 5-year-old Lily 3 hours a day because her mother can't afford daycare. Technically speaking, all boxers for reporting CPS are checked. But James also knows reality. He understands the system. He's seen results 100 times over. CPS isn't going to give Rachel $1,800. It's not going to pay for childcare. It's not going to find her a better job. It's going to do one thing: remove children, for their safety. A phrase the system uses to justify separating families who are struggling but not abusive. So what happens then? Rachel goes to a shelter. If there's space, she works trying to save for a deposit on a new apartment. But without children, she doesn't qualify for family assistance. so she survives on minimum wage. It takes her months here to save enough. Meanwhile, Ethan and Lily are in foster care, possibly separated, growing up believing their mother abandoned them, developing lifelong abandonment trauma. Reunification rate, 38%, meaning that following protocol has a 62% chance of permanently destroying this family. But what alternatives? Help directly. Pay the rent. Connect Rachel with resources. Give her time to stabilize. But this crosses a line. The sheriff can't give almost $2,000 to a citizen without raising questions. It would seem improper. Favoritism, possibly even corruption, if someone with malicious intent wanted to interpret it that way. And Sarah, his wife, has already expressed frustration. Conversations in recent weeks echo this sentiment. James, you can't save everyone. I know you care, but it brings too much work home. It consumes us. Just wanting to help, I know. But we have our own lives, our own concerns, and you put your badge above everything else, including us. Not an ultimatum, but a warning. Their marriage has been strained. Having no children was Sarah's choice, focused on her career as a nurse. She didn't want the complications of parenthood. James accepted it, but part of him always wanted a family. And now, he's considering spending $1,800 money that should be theirs jointly on a stranger. Will Sarah understand? Will she support her? Or will she see it as confirmation of her fear that James prioritizes strangers over his wife? James watches Ethan finish his sandwich. The boy cleans the plate meticulously. He takes it to the sink. He starts washing it without being asked. 8 years old, doing adult work, because he needs to. Because his mother is struggling, and he's trying to help in ways that a child can. And Lily, 5 years old, hugs Rachel. Mommy, can I have more? I'm still hungry. Rachel hesitates. Because there are only 2 slices of bread left. She needs to make them last until Friday, when she gets paid. Of course, dear, she makes another sandwich, half the size. Gives it to Lily. And James sees Rachel didn't eat. She gave portions of it to children. Probably did this for days, weeks. A mother sacrificing herself so her children can eat. And the system wants to call her negligent. The decision becomes final. James isn't going to report CPS. He's going to help. He's going to find a way to pay the rent without compromising his badge. He's going to connect Rachel with real resources. He's going to give her the chance his neighbor gave his mother 30 years ago. Because protocol is a guide, not God. And when protocol demands destroying a family to help it, then protocol is wrong. James will do the right thing, even if it costs him his badge. Even if it costs him his marriage. Because, looking at Ethan and Lily, he knows some costs are worth paying. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the transformation that takes place between James and Rachel in the following days, the journey of a sheriff fulfilling his duty and a desperate mother accepting charity for 2 people who recognize themselves as survivors, trying to do right in a world that punishes kindnesses, not instantaneous. It's not a movie romance. It's the gradual building of trust through practical help and shared vulnerability about failure, loss, and redemption. And the impact of this connection goes beyond resolving an eviction crisis. It will reveal a hidden truth about why they both need to believe that doing right matters more than the cost. James goes home on Thanksgiving, even to the quiet apartment where Sarah has already slept, leaving a note saying provisions are in the fridge. See you tomorrow, and doesn't sleep. He stays up until 3 in the morning, making plans. You can't just give Rachel $1,800. It would seem inappropriate. It would raise questions. But you can be creative, strategic. Meet Mr. Raymond Chen, owner of the Maple Ridge Apartments, from community meetings. Chen isn't cruel. He's pragmatic. He runs a business, and business requires consistent revenue. James calls at 8 in the morning. Thanksgiving. Too early to be polite. But urgency waits for no etiquette. Mr. Chen, Sheriff James Harding. Sorry to call on a holiday, Sheriff. Is something wrong? Immediate concern. Because a sheriff call rarely means good news. No, I just have a tenant of yours. Rachel Morgan, apartment 14. She received an eviction notice. Ah, yes, 2 months late. I warned you multiple times. I completely understand. I'm not questioning your decision. I'm just asking, is there flexibility? If part of it is paid immediately. Silence. Chen processing. Why is the sheriff involved? Because I understood her situation. Widowed, 2 young children, struggling but not neglectful. And I thought, maybe there's a solution that works for both of you. You get part now. She gets time for the rest. Chen sighs. Sheriff, I run a business. I have expenses. Mortgage on the building, maintenance. I can't operate in charity. I'm not asking for charity. I'm offering a guarantee. James takes a deep breath. I'll personally guarantee $1,800. If Rachel doesn't pay, I will. Are you guaranteeing her debt? Yes. Because I believe she will pay. She just needs time. And because James knows, if she doesn't, Rachel will lose children. Chen considers. All right, if you guarantee it, I'll accept $900 now. And the rest, $900, in 2 weeks. But Sheriff, if she doesn't pay, you're on the hook. Understood? And thank you. James hangs up and feels the weight of his decision. He just personally committed almost $2,000 to a woman he met yesterday. Sarah will question it. The captain will question whether he finds out. But his conscience is clear. At 11 in the morning, James knocks on the door of apartment 14. Carrying bags. Lots of bags. Rachel opens the door. Surprise. Sheriff. What? James? You can call me James. He holds up bags. Sarah did too much for Thanksgiving. I thought you could help a white lie. Sarah made a regular portion. James asked her to prepare extra specifically for Rachel. And Saretho, questioning his involvement, agreed. Just this once. Rachel looks at the bags. Then at James. You didn't need to. I needed to. Because cooking for 2 when you could feed 5 is a waste. He enters as she steps back. He places bags on a tiny counter. Turkey, not whole, leftovers, stuffing, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, the essentials. Lily appears, eyes wide. Is that a real turkey? Real turkey. James smiles. Does your mother know how to reheat it? I can find out. Rachel is still processing. Because strangers don't do that. Especially, not Sheriff. And I spoke with Mr. Chen, the owner. James turns to Rachel. He agreed. $900 now. $900 in 2 weeks. I guaranteed it personally. So you have time. Rachel freezes. You guaranteed it. That means you pay. If I don't pay, it won't come to that. Because you'll pay. You just need time to breathe. James maintains a casual tone. Securing almost $2,000 is a daily decision. So today you feed your children decent food. Tomorrow we start dealing with the rest. Tears fill Rachel's eyes. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief so profound it hurts. Why are you doing this? Because someone did it for me. A long time ago. And I learned, kindness isn't a transaction. It's an investment in humanity. James pauses. And Rachel, you deserve a chance to rebuild. Not charity, a chance. James is visiting again on Saturday. Not in uniform, casual clothes. And he's bringing a bag. Clothes that don't fit anymore. Another nice lie. He bought them. Target. Clothes for Ethan and Lily. Proper jackets. New sneakers. A few shirts. Rachel looks through the bag. She recognizes it immediately. The tags are still attached. James, I found it in the closet. Sarah said to donate it. I thought you could use it first. A blatant lie, but it allows Rachel to accept it without feeling dependent. Thank you, broken voice. And they talk. For the first time, they really talk. Not sheriff and citizen. People. Rachel shares the pain she carries. You know what? Hurts the most. It's not poverty. It's judgment. The whole city sees me as a failure, as if losing my husband was a choice, as if poverty is a character flaw. No, it's not. James leans in. It's circumstance. The system fails people like you daily, not because you're inadequate, because the system is. But everyone acts as if it's my fault, because it's easier to blame the individual than to acknowledge a broken system. If they admit the system fails, it means it could fail them too. And that's terrifying. James pauses. My mother faced the same judgment. Single mother, poor. The city treated her like trash, and I internalized it. If I work hard enough, I'll never be like that. Did it work? For now. But I also learned, luck is a huge factor. I was born a man, white, without disabilities, in a city that offered opportunities. My mother had help at the right time. And me. I capitalized on it. Raw honesty. You work as hard as I did, but you weren't lucky. The system failed. You at critical moments. It's not your fault. Words deeply affect Rachel, because someone finally sees she is not lazy. She is not irresponsible. She is unlucky in a world that punishes bad luck as a moral sin. On Sunday, James returns, and Rachel notices he's coming every day, not as sheriff, as a friend. Don't you have family to visit? Sarah's parents. But only for a few hours. James sits on a worn sofa, and honestly, I'd rather be here. Why? James considers how much to share. How much is appropriate? Decide. Honesty. Why here? It matters. Conversations with Sarah's parents are about politics, the stock market, retirement planning. Important, but not urgent. Here, you're fighting for everything. And that reminds me why I became sheriff. To help when it matters. Rachel absorbs it. Does your wife understand? Sarah is a good person, but she doesn't fully understand. She grew up comfortably, upper middle class. She never faced a choice between food and electricity. So, when I bring work home, she sees it as an obsession. She doesn't see it as a calling. Does this cause problems? Sometimes. An honest admission. Marriage is complicated. We love each other, but we want different things. She wants stability, predictability. I want purpose. And sometimes purpose is chaotic. Rachel understands. Michael was like that. He wanted purpose. That's why he became an electrician. It wasn't about money. It was about fixing things, making things tangible. And I loved that about him. Do you still love him? Always. Without hesitation. You don't stop loving because someone dies. You just learn to live with their absence. Words resonate with James, because he carries absence, too. Not the death of a spouse, but an equally devastating loss. I had a sister, Emma, 3 years younger, addicted at 19. I tried to help. I tried interventions, rehab, everything. But addiction is relentless. She died at 22. Overdose. His voice deepens. And I carried the burden. I failed to see the signs early enough. I failed to do enough when it mattered. It wasn't your fault. I know intellectually, but emotionally, I carry the burden. And since then, I look for opportunities not to fail again, to see when someone needs help, to act before it's too late. Rachel understands completely. That's why she's helping me. Partially, but also because you deserve help. Not as redemption for my failure, but because you are a valuable person in an impossible situation, and you deserve a chance. The connection isn't romantic. James is married. Rachel is still struggling with the loss of Michael, but it's profound. A mutual recognition between two people marked by loss. Two people who know the world punishes kindness, but doing the right thing matters, even when it costs you. And through conversations, through shared vulnerability, something changes. Rachel begins to believe. Maybe she's not alone. Maybe she deserves help. Maybe surviving is enough. And James reaffirms, purpose matters more than comfort. Distinction means something when used to protect the vulnerable, and sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the victory James secures for Rachel, an extension of the eviction, time to breathe, a chance to rebuild, should have been the end of the crisis. It should have been the moment when the family finally stabilizes and begins its journey back to safety. But revelations about what happens when you call the system's attention, when neighbors decide that poverty is neglect, when help attracts observation instead of gratitude, all of this transforms a small victory into a harbinger of a larger battle. And the hidden truth about who reported Rachel. It will show that danger was never just about money. On the Monday after Thanksgiving, James keeps his promise. He calls Chen at 9 in the morning. Reasonable as it is on a weekday. Mr. Chen. James Harding. Regarding our agreement, I have 900. Can I deliver today? The sheriff keeps his word. I respect that. Chen seems genuinely impressed. Yes, bring it to the office. I'll update Rachel's account. James goes to the bank. He withdraws 900 from his personal account. Sarah will see it on the statement. She'll question it, but James will deal with that later. His priority now is Rachel. He hands Chen the money, receives a receipt, and takes it to Rachel at 11. She's working, but James stops by her office during her lunch break. Rachel works for a small accounting firm. She's an administrative assistant, filing paperwork and scheduling meetings. The job pays $1,400 a month and offers zero flexibility. James is waiting in the reception area. Rachel leaves at 12:15. Surprised to see him. James, is everything all right? Everything's settled. Chen received 900. You have 2 weeks to complete the rest. Eviction canceled. Rachel covers her mouth. Tears immediately well up. You really did. You really paid for it, and you'll pay it back. In your own time. No rush. James hands over a receipt. Keep this. Proof of payment. How am I supposed to pay 900 in 2 weeks, when I barely pay 600 in rent now? I've thought about that. I have a friend who runs a restaurant, McCready's. He needs someone to wash dishes on weekends. $8 an hour. 10 hours Saturday and Sunday. 160 a week. 2 weeks. 320. But that's only a third. And I connected you with a non-profit organization, Family Aid Services. They provide one-time emergency assistance. Maximum 500. Application takes a week. But I have contacts. I'll speed things up. James had already thought of everything. 320 from the side job. 500 from Family Aid. That leaves only 80 that you need to find. Your salary covers it. Rachel is suing. The plan is possible. Absolutely possible. You planned everything. I planned this because it matters. And because you deserve a real chance. Not just inevitable delay. James glances at her watch. You have 15 minutes. Let's go for a walk. Fresh air helps. They go out. They walk around the block near the office building. It's a cold November, but the sun shines occasionally. McCready's is waiting for your call. Tell them Sheriff Harding referred you. Starts Saturday if you want. I want to. Obviously I want to. Rachel wipes her eyes. Cheap makeup smudging. But James. That solves the eviction. It doesn't solve the rest. I still barely pay the bills. I still let Ethan take care of Lily. I'm still one disaster away from completely collapsing. I know. And I'm not saying the problem is solved. I'm just saying, today you don't lose children. And tomorrow, we build from there. James pauses. But Rachel, you need to accept help when it's offered. Government assistance, nonprofit organizations, everything. Pride doesn't feed children. It's not pride. It's fear. Fear of being judged. Of being seen as dependent. Everyone is dependent on the system. The rich depend on laws protecting property. The middle class depends on public infrastructure. The poor, they depend on direct assistance. There's no shame in that. That's how society works. His tone is firm but gentle. So accept help, build stability, and when you're stable, pay it back. Later, Victory is real. Small, but tangible. Rachel isn't being evicted. She has a plan to pay the remainder. She's working extra Saturdays and Sundays, while James offers to look after Ethan and Lily. I'll take them to the park. Bring them back later, no problem. But victory attracts attention. And attention in a poor neighborhood is rarely positive. On Tuesday, Rachel was washing dishes in the apartment when there was a knock. Firm, official. She opens the door and sees a woman in her early 40s. Professional attire. A neutral expression that social work careers cultivate. Rachel Morgan. Try, on Linda Hayes. County Child Protective Services. I received a report about minors at this residence. May I enter? Rachel's world freezes. CPS, the nightmare she feared. Here, a report. A report about what? Allegations of inadequate supervision. Children left alone. Food insecurity. Unstable environment. Linda maintains a professional tone. Not accusatory, but also not friendly. May I come in? Or would you prefer I return with judicial authority? There is no real choice. Rachel steps back. Come in. Linda enters. Looks around. Small apartment. 1 bedroom. Sparsely furnished, but clean. Organized. Where are the children? School. Ethan in the 3rd grade. Lily in kindergarten. And who takes care of them after school? A trick question. An honest answer leads to incrimination. A lie gets discovered. And worse, Rachel chooses honesty. Ethan, for 3 hours, until I get back from work at 6. Linda takes notes. Is Ethan 8 years old? Try. Statewide, children under the age of 12 cannot be left unsupervised by an adult. Especially not those responsible for an additional minor. I know. But daycare costs $800 a month. I can't afford it. And work is inflexible. I understand the difficulties. But the law isn't flexible. An 8-year-old can't supervise a 5-year-old. Linda continues taking notes. And what about food security? Is there enough food? Yes. Now that's better. We had a difficult week, but define difficult. I didn't have enough money for a full grocery shop, but Sheriff Harding helped. He brought food, and now I have extra work. Sheriff Harding. Linda looks up. How is he involved? Rachel realizes her mistake. Mentioning James prompts a question. He found me at the market when I was having trouble paying, and he helped. He connected me with resources. And does he visit? Regularly. Yes. Sometimes. To check that we're okay. Linda takes extensive notes, and Rachel understands. Every detail is being documented. Every harsh word spoken against her. Ms. Morgan, based on the initial report and observations, I will open a formal investigation. I am not removing any children today, but the situation is under active observation. Follow-up visits will be scheduled, and you need to demonstrate 1. Proper childcare arrangement. Ethan cannot be responsible for Lily. 2. Consistent food security. The refrigerator needs to have enough food for 3 meals a day. 3. Housing stability. Any risk of eviction needs to be addressed. Failure in any area will result in reassessment, including possible temporary removal of minors. A veiled threat disguised as professional concern. I understand. Rachel forces a firm voice. She's not going to cry in front of a social worker. She's not going to give them any more ammunition. Linda hands over the card. Please contact me if the situation changes. And Mrs. Morgan, I'm here to protect children, not punish them. But you need to make changes. She leaves, and Rachel collapses onto the sofa. Trembling CPS is watching. One slip-up, a late bill, a skipped meal, Ethan alone with Lily. When social services visit unannounced and he loses everything. James finds out Tuesday night when Rachel calls. Crying CPS came, opened an investigation. They say Ethan can't take care of Lily, that I need to demonstrate proper childcare, but I can't afford daycare. Breathe. Slowly. James is already processing solutions. Who reported it? Linda didn't say anonymous report. Someone claimed children were alone. Food insecurity. Someone who's been watching you closely. Probably a neighbor. James feels angry. Because reporting wasn't about protecting children, it was about punishing Rachel for being visibly poor. I'll find out who, and I'll deal with it. Maz, CPS, I'll handle childcare. I know people, and I'll document that. You're taking steps. CPS wants to see effort. I'll make sure they see it. Pause. Rachel, you're not going to lose Ethan and Lily. Not while I'm involved. But you've already done too much. I haven't done enough yet. Because you're still under threat. His tone hardens with determination. And I won't stop until you're safe. Completely safe. James investigates. He talks to other residents of Maple Ridge. And he discovers Mrs. Dolores Finch. Apartment 16. 2 apartments from Rachel. 58 years old. Retired and self-proclaimed neighborhood observer. James knocks on her door Wednesday night. Dolores opens the door. He recognizes the uniform immediately. Sheriff, something wrong. Did you report Rachel Morgan to CPS? Dolores doesn't deny it. Proudly, even, yes, those children are left alone for hours. An 8-year-old boy taking care of a little girl. Clear neglect, or a mother doing the best she can with 0 resources. That's no excuse. Children need adult supervision, which costs $800 a month that she doesn't have. So instead of offering to help, watching the children, donating food, anything useful, you reported it to the system that separates families. James crosses his arms. Do you know what will happen if CPS removes those children? Foster care, separated, traumatized, and Rachel, destroyed. It's not my responsibility, no. But gratuitous cruelty didn't have to be your choice either. James turns to leave, and Mrs. Finch, if you report again without legitimate cause, I'll investigate for harassment, because this report wasn't about child safety, it was about judgment. He leaves, Dolores stands at the door, and James knows she won't stop, because people like Dolores see poverty as a moral failing, and punishing moral failing is a public service in her mind. Rachel is not safe. Eviction averted. But CPS is watching. Hostile neighbor. System waiting for her to slip up. Victory is partial, and the battle, it has only just begun. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the 2 weeks following the CPS investigation, where Rachel works double shifts at the restaurant, where James coordinates childcare through a network of church volunteers who ultimately do more than pray, where each day is an impossible balancing act between demonstrating stability and not completely collapsing, should have proven that Rachel is doing everything right. They should have shown the system that a struggling mother isn't a failing mother. But revelations about how helping someone can attract exactly the wrong kind of attention. How kindness can be used as evidence against you. How the system doesn't distinguish between genuine neglect and impossible poverty all culminate in a letter that transforms observation into a formal accusation. And the hidden truth about who really wants Rachel destroyed. It will force James to confront the impact of his own actions. Rachel works harder than she's ever worked. Before 8-hour shifts at the accounting office Monday through Friday, 10 hours at McCready's restaurant, Saturday and Sunday, washing dishes until her hands crack and bleed. $28 worth of Band-Aids because she can't work with bleeding hands on food. She arrives home at 9 o'clock on weekend nights, exhausted. Ethan and Lily are already asleep. James took them to the park, fed them a simple dinner of pasta and gravy, and put them to bed with a story he improvised about a brave astronaut. Rachel earns 324 weekends. She adds that to the 500 that Family Aid Services approved. James expedited the process, knew the director, and called personally. And with the 80 she saved by literally cutting everything non-essential, she pays Chen the remaining 900 on Friday of the second week. Eviction permanently avoided. Rachel is up to date, breathing for the first time in months. And CPS, James documented everything. He photographed the childcare arrangement, volunteers from Grace Community, Church agreed to rotate supervision of Ethan and Lily for 3 hours a day until Rachel arrived. At no cost, because James explained the situation to Pastor David, who finally did more than offer thoughts and prayers. Faith without works is dead, Pastor David admitted, ashamed. We should have helped sooner. James also photographed Rachel's refrigerator. Now stocked with food he and Sarah had bought Sarah finally. Understanding the gravity of the situation after James explained that Rachel was literally days away from losing her children. Do what you need to do, Sarah said. Not enthusiasm, but permission. Meticulous documentation. Everything CPS requested. Rachel is fulfilling her obligations. Demonstrating stability. Effort. Transforming the situation. That should be enough. 2 weeks after her initial visit from CPS, Rachel is at work when she receives a call. Unknown number. Hello, Rachel Morgan. Female voice. Official cold. Try. Lisa Chen. County Attorney's Office. You received a summons by mail, but as it is urgent, I am calling you directly. A child neglect hearing has been scheduled. You have 10 days to respond or appear. The world stops. Again. Just like it stopped when it received an eviction notice. Just like it stopped when Michael died. Audience. I thought CPS was just observing. Initial observation led to formal investigation. Allegations sufficient to proceed to a court hearing. You will receive formal notification today by certified mail. Attendance is mandatory. Failure to appear will result in a default order, which may include removal of minors. Allegations of what? I'm doing everything, CPS asked. The formal notification lists the specifications. I suggest you consult a lawyer. Her tone is bureaucratic, not cruel, just indifferent. Good luck, Ms. Morgan. The line dies. Rachel sits in the office bathroom, the only private place, and trembles. She doesn't cry, not yet, because she needs to understand first. Leave early. Family emergency, says Mrs. Dunn, who sighs but allows it. Just this once. He runs home, literally runs. 45 minutes. He arrives breathless and sees a yellow envelope stuck to the door. A certificate. It rips open. It opens while hands tremble so much that they tear the edges. Notice of child neglect hearing state versus Rachel Morgan Ray, Minortis Cezanne Morgan Ochui, Lily Morgan, 5, her eyes scan. Processing. Fragments. The petition was filed alleging child neglect under state statute 43.21. 2 allegations include 1. Inadequate supervision. Minors consistently left alone with an 8-year-old child as the sole caregiver for extended periods. 2. Chronic food insecurity. Evidence of a mother's inability to provide adequate nutrition. Documented incident in a market where the mother was unable to afford basic food. 3. Unstable housing. Recent history of near eviction. Unsuitable living environment. For minors. 4. Inappropriate involvement with a law enforcement officer. Questionable relationship with Sheriff James Harding, raising concerns about the mother's judgment and the officer's motives. Hearing scheduled for December 16th, 10 a.m., Ridgemont County Court. Attendance is mandatory. Failure to appear will result in a default order granting temporary custody to the state pending further investigation. Rachel reads it 4 times. Each time, it gets worse. Someone formalized it. Someone turned CPS observation into a legal process. Someone doesn't just want her to be observed. They want her to lose children. And point 4. Inappropriate involvement with Sheriff James Harding. James, his help, his kindness, being used as evidence against her. Rachel calls James immediately. Her hands are shaking so much, she almost drops the phone. Rachel, what happened? Hearing formal child neglect, 10 days. Her voice breaks. And James, they're using you. They say your involvement is inappropriate, that it raises questions about my judgment. Silence. Heavy James processing. Someone climbed the ladder. Someone doesn't just want to watch you. They want to destroy you. anger in his voice, controlled but absolute. Who signed the petition? It doesn't say. Just state versus Rachel Morgan. But James. She takes a deep breath. The point about unstable housing mentions recent history of near eviction. Only Chen knew the details, and he was angry that you intervened. Negotiated when he wanted a full eviction. James is considering Chen's pragmatism, a business owner, but also a man who doesn't like authority dictating how he manages property. James essentially forced an agreement. Chen agreed. But resentment may have motivated the report. I'll talk to Chen. Find out if it was him. So what if it's over? What changes? The petition has already been filed. The hearing is scheduled. Rachel's voice was desperate. And James, your involvement is being used. Against me? They say it's inappropriate. That it questions my judgment. So your help, everything you did is being used to show that I'm unstable. Words cut through. Because James realizes a brutal truth. Helping Rachel may have put her in more danger. What if he had never intervened? She would have been evicted. She probably would have lost her children anyway. But it would have been a result of circumstance. Not a formal process based on inappropriate involvement. His kindness is being manipulated, turned into proof of her instability. Rachel, listen. This isn't your fault, or mine. It's the system using anything it can against you. Firm tone, and in court. Will prove the truth. You're stable now. You have childcare. You have food. You have paid housing. And my involvement. It was professional. Sheriff fulfilling my duty to protect a vulnerable citizen. But what if the judge doesn't see it that way? What if they see that the sheriff should have reported CPS, but instead, paid rent? What if they interpret it as something improper? Then we fight. With a lawyer, with documentation, with witnesses. James is already planning. But Rachel, you're not going to lose Ethan and Lily. I won't allow it. You may not have a choice, because the system doesn't see mothers struggling. The system sees mothers failing. And the more you help, the more it seems like I need to be saved. That I can't raise children alone. Painful truth. The system punishes women who need help. It treats need as weakness. Evidence of inadequacy. James goes to Chen's office the next day, without calling beforehand, because you want to see an immediate reaction. Chen sits at a small desk in an office at the back of the Maple Ridge complex. Paperwork is scattered about. A 60-year-old man managing property he inherited from his father, Sheriff Harding. Sorpresa, did you formally report Rachel Morgan? Did you petition for a negligence hearing? Chen stops. His expression is neutral, but his eyes show recognition. I don't know what you're talking about. A hearing has been scheduled. The petition cites a history of near eviction and inadequate housing. Details that only the owner would know. Sheriff, I get dozens of tenants with problems. Did anyone report Mrs. Morgan? It wasn't me, but it's not surprising either. She was 2 months behind on payments. Children were obviously left alone regularly. Any neighbor could have reported her, but you were motivated. I was annoyed because I negotiated an extension. Angry, no, pragmatic. Chen leans back. You guaranteed payment. She paid. Deal settled. Why would I complicate things by reporting it? The logic rings true. But James doesn't completely trust it. If I find out it was you, it wasn't. But Sheriff Chen pauses. His involvement with Mrs. Morgan is generating conversation. People notice Sheriff visiting the single woman's apartment regularly, bringing food, paying bills. It seems personal. And perception matters. The perception of people who judge instead of helping. Maybe. But perception also affects reputation. Yours and hers. Chen returns to paperwork, signaling the end of the conversation. James leaves, and realizes, even if Chen didn't formally report it, he planted seeds. Casual comments to neighbors. Insinuations about sheriff and tenant. Gossip that spreads and eventually reaches the CPS as community concern. James meets Rachel at night, at her apartment. Ethan and Lily are asleep. Chen denies it. but he fueled the narrative, and someone formalized it. So what? We go to the hearing, and hopefully the judge will believe that the sheriff paying rent isn't something. Let's be honest. And with a lawyer. I'll connect you with Melissa Torres. Family lawyer. Excellent. And she'll work pro bono if I ask. Pro bono. Rachel laughs bitterly. Because even lawyers need to be charitable. It's not charity. It's an investment in justice. James sits on the sofa next to her. Rachel, I know you're exhausted. I know you feel like every time you get up, the system knocks you down. But giving up means they win. And you're not a loser. I'm not a winner either. I'm a survivor. And sometimes, surviving isn't enough. That's enough. Because survivors eventually thrive. When the system finally stops punishing and starts supporting, James pauses. And Rachel, my involvement being used against you. I'm sorry. I never meant to put you in any more danger. You didn't put it in. The system did. Because the system punishes kindness. It turns help into a weapon. She looks at him. But James, I don't regret you helping, because without you, I would have lost everything. At least now, I have a chance to fight. 10 days until the hearing. And Rachel faces an impossible choice. Push James away to make his involvement seem less inappropriate. Or continue accepting help she needs, but that the system is using against her. And James faces a brutal truth. Sometimes, doing the right thing attracts the wrong kind of attention. Sometimes, helping someone puts them in more danger. Because the system doesn't see compassion. The system sees questionable relationships. And in 10 days, the judge will decide. Is Rachel a struggling mother, deserving of support, or a failing mother needing to have her children removed? And the decision? It may have less to do with Rachel, and more to do with how the system interprets sheriffs. Kindness. Because sometimes, having someone fight for you is exactly what attracts the wrong kind of attention. And the system that's supposed to protect families. Often, it's what destroys them. Because sometimes, having someone fight for you is exactly what attracts the wrong kind of attention. And the system that's supposed to protect families. Often, it's what destroys them. And this is where Rachel and James's story becomes something bigger than avoided eviction, bought food, or even an impending hearing that could separate a mother from her children. It's about how the entire system is designed to punish poverty instead of helping. About how kindness, real, substantive kindness that costs something, is transformed into evidence of instability. About how having an ally can be exactly what the system uses to prove you don't deserve your children. Rachel has 10 days until the hearing. 10 days to prove she's not negligent, that she's just poor, and what difference does it make? The system rarely acknowledges that. James has 10 days to decide. Does he remain involved, knowing his presence is being used against Rachel? Or does he step aside and let her fight alone to protect her reputation, knowing that on her own, her chances are almost zero? Melissa Torres, a lawyer James knows, who agreed to take the case pro bono, has already warned, neglect hearings are difficult, especially when the mother is poor and alone. The judge sees instability, and instability, for the system, that's neglect. We need to demonstrate that Rachel not only improved the situation, but maintains permanent stability, and the sheriff's involvement. It can help or hinder. It depends on how we present it. So for the next 10 days, Rachel needs to be perfect. She can't have a late bill. She can't miss a shift at work. She can't have an empty refrigerator when the social worker makes a surprise visit. She can't have Ethan and Lily alone for even a minute, an impossible perfection for a mother with limited resources, but her only chance to keep her children, and James. James needs to prove that his help was professional, not personal, not romantic, a sheriff fulfilling his duty to protect a vulnerable citizen, not a man developing feelings for a woman that he should have reported to CPS. The line between duty and compassion. The system doesn't recognize it. It only sees protocol followed or protocol broken. And when the hearing takes place, when the judge hears allegations of neglect, When the social worker testifies about inadequate supervision and food insecurity. When neighbors, like Mrs. Finch, testify about children constantly left alone. When the state attorney paints Rachel as an irresponsible mother, using her relationship with the sheriff to avoid responsibility. Rachel will discover a brutal truth. The system doesn't care about context. The system cares about marked boxes, and her boxers. All marked for negligence. Unless Melissa can convince the judge to see the humanity behind the poverty, to see a mother struggling instead of a mother failing. Chances, Melissa admitted, 50-50 at best. If this kind of story resonates with you, if you understand that poverty isn't negligence, that having an ally shouldn't be used as evidence against you, that a system that punishes mothers for being poor is a broken system, signing up here is the way to continue walking this path with me. Because Rachel's journey doesn't end with a hearing. It ends when she finally finds real stability, or when the system finally wins and separates a family that should never have been separated. And you'll want to see what happens when the judge makes a decision. When James has to choose between his badge and his conscience one last time. When Rachel faces the real possibility of saying goodbye to Ethan and Lily, not because she's a bad mother, but because she's poor in a society that treats poverty as a crime. Comment below, I'm with you until the end. Because when you leave that comment, you're saying more than just that you're engaged. You're saying that you recognize injustice when you see it. That you understand that families like Rachel exist in every city, in every county, facing a system that should protect but instead destroys. And that stories like these, real, complicated, with no guarantee of a happy ending, need to be told until the system changes. Rachel Morgan is not a fictional character designed for easy entertainment. She represents millions of single mothers who have lost spouses, who have been let down by insurance companies, who work 2 jobs and still can't pay bills, who leave children with older siblings because daycare costs more than rent, who are judged by communities that could help but choose to report. And Sheriff James Harding. He represents a choice every law enforcement officer faces. Blindly following protocol, or recognizing that sometimes protocol causes more harm than good. That a badge should serve justice, not bureaucracy. That sometimes doing the right thing means risking your career, because the alternative, watching a child be removed from a loving mother for the crime of poverty, is intolerable. And if this touched you in any way, you felt anger at the system, repeatedly failing Rachel, pain at Ethan and Lily facing the possibility of foster care, admiration for James choosing humanity over protocol, or frustration at the community judging instead of helping, leave a like. So I know. Because this engagement tells me that stories with real moral weight, with genuine costs, with conflicts that don't have easy answers, matter more than superficial escapism. And there's a video here that continues in the same vein, exploring what happens in court. How Melissa defends Rachel against accusations of negligence. How James testifies, knowing that his words can save or condemn her. How Rachel faces the most terrifying moment of her life. The judge deciding whether she keeps the children or whether the system wins and destroys the family permanently. Click and follow along there. Why the truth about child neglect hearings? They're rarely about actual neglect. They're about poverty being judged as a moral failing. About struggling mothers being seen as failing mothers. About a system that removes children first and asks questions later, if it asks any questions at all. And Rachel is days away from finding out if the fight was enough. If James risking his badge was enough. If the documentation, the witnesses, the desperate effort to demonstrate stability was enough. Either the system, a system that denies life insurance on technical grounds, that forecloses on widows' mortgages, that drives mothers out of the job market for not having $2, that turns aid into evidence of instability, finally wins. And Ethan and Lily wake up in different foster homes, wondering why mom didn't come to get them, carrying a lifelong trauma of abandonment, not understanding that mom didn't abandon them. The system took them away. See you next time. Because Rachel deserves a chance to prove that survival is enough. That poverty is not neglect. That love, deep, sacrificial love, the kind that makes a mother skip meals so her children can eat, matters more than a bank account. And James deserves to know that doing the right thing, even when the system punishes, is worth the risky distinction. And what about Ethan and Lily? They deserve to grow up with a mother who fights for them. Not in strange homes, separated, traumatized by a system that claimed to be protecting them. Stories that matter never end easily. And it's only beginning to show how much the system can destroy when it decides that poverty is a crime. Until then,